Yeah. Yes, here we are for the good fight on this Tuesday night, 7 a.m. I mean, Lord have mercy, 7 p.m. As always, I am so glad to be able to um, welcome you into this space. And I welcome you into this space in the spirit of Salbona, in that spirit of oneness that says that we are bound together in our humanity. And in this space of the good fight, we're asking ourselves, how do we demonstrate the oneness of our humanity as faithful people, those of us who believe in faith in whatever that context is, whether it's some kind of organized religion, whether it's through your spirituality, whether you call God Jesus or Buddha or Allah, whether you are a Jehovah's Witness, whether you are Wiccan, whether you don't ascribe to any kind of faith. Like, how does our faith show up when we are interacting one with another? So that's what we are wrestling with, and we're wrestling to disengage ourselves from the system of religion, that system of religion that is trying to bind us to a set of doctrine, a set of rules, a set of structures and systems that are trying to force us into being a certain way in order to call ourselves faithful, when really our journey is about being in right relationship, one with whoever it is we believe is higher than us as a deity, whatever name you use. And so that's what the good fight is all about. And I'm excited about this conversation. I'm excited about every conversation that we have. I'm also excited about the conversations that live beyond this moment. Like, some of you will reach out to me and say, now I heard you say, or I need you to tell me what you really meant. And so I really appreciate that. And some of you are like, oh my goodness, I never even thought about that. And so thank you for having that conversation. So I really just appreciate all of the conversations that we have as it relates to the good fight. And you are absolutely welcome to, in this space, to continue those conversations. If this is your first time joining us for the good fight, I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. If you join us every single week, welcome, welcome, welcome. Everyone is welcome, welcome, welcome in this space. Hotep, I see you. Thank you for joining us. Everyone is welcome in this space. But if this is your first time, I want to make sure that you know that there are ways that you can engage with the good fight. One of the ways that you can engage is to see yourself reflected in the story. We always center our conversation in a story from the Bible that Protestants use, because I am a cradle Christian, and so that is what I am most familiar with. But the conversation is not about Jesus. The conversation is not about Christ in terms of us thinking beyond what it means to use these principles, to use these words to help guide our interactions with each other. So where are you in the story? Which role are you playing? Which character are you? Which character have you been? Which character would you like to be? These are just questions that you ask yourself in order to interrogate yourself, so you can think more deeply about how you are showing up for folks. Another way that you can engage in the good fight is to look through a window. Like, you realize that the story that's being told, you have absolutely no experience with it at all. Sunday, we started talking about Kendrick Lamar, and my friends were like, have you seen the video with the pop-up? I was like, no. They were like, have you seen the video with the chains? I was like, no. They were like, have you seen the video with the box? I was like, no. Like, I don't know anything about this artist. I am not familiar with this conversation. I have no idea what you all are talking about. However, I am open to receiving the knowledge and the information that I can glean from being introduced to the content. And so I did not mind moving over to another part of the house so that we could actually watch some of these videos. And I watched them with intensity. Like, I wanted to see what they were talking about. I wanted to learn something. So when you realize that this is out of your scope, This is out of your area of expertise. This is out of your area of lived experience. That does not mean that there's not anything that you can learn from it. So having an open mind and giving yourself over to the story is a second way that you can engage with the good fight. A third way that you can engage is to walk through a door. So whatever we are talking about in this hour, I feel like you can't see my eyes. Whatever we're talking about in this hour, the conversation doesn't have to stop here. I'm going to hit the end stream at 8 o'clock. I'm going to leave the studio. But how does the conversation continue to live in your body? How does it continue to manifest when you are out and about during your daily activities? Like, how does it continue to percolate in your mind as you think on these things beyond this moment? And so walking through a door allows you to engage in more conversations, to read more articles, to read more books, to just keep going in your quest for more knowledge around the subject matter that is chosen for tonight's conversation. And then finally, a way that you can engage with a good fight is to comment right here as we are live, or you can comment offline, or you can hit me up. My direct number is area code 228-236-7440, 228-236-7440. Feel free to hit me up any way you can. I love the conversation. It does not bother me at all. So thank you for joining us for the Good Fight on this night, December 10th on Tuesday in the year 2024. So what I want to talk about today is veganism. And on the flyer that I posted on I don't know if I've said this out loud, but every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, I post the flyer about the session that's going to start at 7, and it tells you what the topic is, and it tells you what the text is in case you want to read, in case you want to have some idea of what we're going to be talking about, in case you want to say, I'm not interested in that, I'll check it out next week. Like however you want to respond to it. But tonight's topic is the sin of veganism. And as always, I want to make sure that I ground us in how we got here. Like I ground the conversation, because as a facilitator, as a cultural strategist, what I have learned is that many times our conversations dissolve because we hear words that are familiar to all of us, and we assume everyone has the same understanding of the definition of the word. And so we just start talking without checking in with each other and saying, well, how do you feel about this word? Like, what does this word mean to you? How does it live in your body? And so I want to make sure that I don't make that mistake and let you know exactly what I mean when I'm using these words, so there won't be a misunderstanding. There may be a disagreement, but there won't be a misunderstanding. We can move forward with disagreements because we can exchange our ideas and we can put forth we can posit our own theories and philosophies, and we can work through that, and we can keep moving the conversation forward. But when there's a misunderstanding, we're talking at each other, and we usually don't have anything that's fruitful that we can hold on to once the conversation ends. And so when I say the sin of veganism, when I say sin, I am continuing to talk about sin and with the definition of it meaning to miss the mark. This is not sin as it has been taught to plenty of us to mean that we have set up a barrier. We have created a divide between us and God, and God cannot get to us because our sin stands in the way. And so we have separated ourselves from God because of whatever behavior it is that we call a sin, whether that be alcohol or smoking or wearing makeup or wearing dresses or going to church on Sunday, because some people think you're supposed to go on Saturday. Like, that is not what I mean by sin at all. I mean that there is a goal that you have in mind. There is something that you want to achieve, and for whatever reason, you don't achieve it. And so because you don't reach your goal, you miss your mark, then that means that's the definition that I'm using for sin. So it's very innocuous in that you can just pick up like where you left off. You have a to-do list today. I had a to-do list today. I think it had like 5 things on it, and I don't think I did one of them. And so I missed my mark for today. And so all I have to do is recognize that, name that, and then encourage myself to make sure that I do complete those tasks tomorrow, right? Like it doesn't have to be a big deal. Now, some things that we have on our list are big deals, and we need to accomplish them because they affect other parts of our lives, not just ourselves. They might affect our children, they might affect our lovers, they might affect our health, they might affect our jobs. And so sometimes to miss the mark really can create some very negative consequences. The point that I'm trying to make is that those consequences don't have anything to do with being in right relationship with God. And what I'm talking about, you can sin every day and you are still very much in love with God, and God is very much in love with you, and there are no problems in that relationship. The Spirit of God will continue to nudge you to do what you set forth to do, but you don't have to worry about God being mad at you or you going to hell or anything like that. So when I'm talking about the sin of veganism tonight, I'm saying we simply have missed our mark in understanding how we should be relating to each other, human to human, and how we should allow our faith to guide that interaction, human to human. And then veganism, I'm not at all taking a stab at people who say they are vegan. I am not vegan. What I do, I really feel like I'm pescatarian, which means that I am a lover of seafood. Like I could eat crab every day of the week and twice on Sundays. I can eat shrimp every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Like I love crab and shrimp. I like mussels and I like squid. I like escargot. Like I like all of that. But my favorite is crab. I don't have to have beef. I don't have to have pork. I definitely don't want no chicken. And so I'm not fond of those meats. Now, so I would rather have the seafood. So for that reason, I could call myself a pescatarian, but I can't really call myself that because I will eat a hamburger. I will have a pork chop. I will have a chicken sandwich from what you call that place, Zaxby's or Popeyes. I've done that before, so I can't really call myself that. Now I ain't never even pretended, and I could call myself a vegetarian because I don't even have to have seafood. I don't mind eating, going to a place and saying I want to have a vegetable plate, so I'm gonna choose my 4 vegetables, and I'm definitely gonna give me some broccoli. I want some broccoli. I want some corn. What else do I usually get? Do you people don't? Because potato definitely, if you consider potato a vegetable, I'm gonna get us some potatoes, and I might get potatoes twice. I might get the mashed potatoes and the fried French fries. so I could consider myself any one of those things: a vegetarian, a pescatarian, even a carnivore, one who eats meat. I've never, ever, ever tried to be vegan, a person who does not include any animal products in their diet. That's not me, never have. So when I'm talking about the sin of veganism, I'm not taking a stab at those people who have decided that this is their way of life, that they do not want to participate in their diet or in their philosophy or in their practices. They don't want to have anything to do with causing harm to animals of any type, whether they are human animals or whether they're animals like dogs or cats or cows or pigs or whatever it is. So I'm not taking a stab at these people at all. I just want to use veganism as a metaphor for the conversation I want to have around how we choose to relate to each other and how we use our faith in that decision-making process about how we relate to each other. And so that's why I want to say, that's what I'm talking about in the sin of veganism. So I don't want anybody to walk away saying that I said to be vegan is a sin. I ain't said that. I don't think that. I don't feel that. I don't believe that. That I'm not positing that. That is not my premise. I just want to use veganism as a way of entering this conversation about what it means to be in right relationship with each other and what it means to be in right relationship with each other, standing on the convictions of our faith, whatever that faith is. So that's where the words, that's the language. Sin, veganism, I wanted to define those for tonight. And so let me tell you how I got here. Now, I keep telling y'all, I do not watch live TV, but I do stream on platforms. I stream on apps on any device. I got smart TVs, I got laptops, I got smartphones, I got iPads, I got whatever. And so I no longer have cable. That's a decision that I made once my mother transitioned, because I never had TV before she even moved in. So it just didn't make sense to me to continue to pay as much money we were paying for cable when I myself don't have to have it. But what I realized is that some of the apps that were available to me, accessible to me when I had cable, are no longer accessible to me now. Like I could only watch Oxygen. I could only watch the Food Network. I could only watch them because I had cable through Xfinity. So once I cut off the cable, they're like, oh, okay, you're going to have to pay, or you just don't even have the ability to watch these shows anymore. And those have become my favorite apps. And so I was sitting here trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do? Because I want to watch cooking shows. I want to watch crime shows. And so now I'm on this quest to try to find other ways, other streaming platforms that will allow me to watch cooking shows and will allow me to watch crime shows. So I stumbled upon this particular cooking show on YouTube called Come Dine With Me. That's what it's called. Come Dine With Me. And what they've done is they've gone across it's in the UK. Most of the time it's in the UK, but it'll be in different cities, Vancouver, Ottawa, like whatever, different cities in the United Kingdom. And they find 4 or 5 people who call themselves foodies who have agreed to participate in this particular competition. And so the competition asks you to create a 3-course meal. There's a starter, there's a main course, and there's a dessert. You create a 3-course meal at your home for these other strangers who have also agreed to participate in this particular competition. At the end of the competition, whoever wins, you're going to get $1,000. Now, the way that you win is that you are scored secretly. So you show up at the person's house, you have the 3-course dinner, you critique the meal throughout the day. Sometimes y'all argue, sometimes y'all love on each other, whatever it is. But at the end of the night, you get in your car, and on your way home, that's when you show what you have scored. And nobody knows what the scores are until the end. Well, nobody ever knows what the scores are, but at the end of the week, you find your placement. You find whether you came in 4th. If it's 4 people, 5th. If it's 5 people, of course, that's only logical. But you decide, you learn your placement at the end of the week, and then the person with the most points gets the $1,000. And on this particular show, which is what I love, like sometimes if it's a joint, if it's a tie, then you just split the money. Like you don't have to try to break the tie. You don't have to try to prove, like you just split the money, however it works. Sometimes it's a 2-way tie. I think one time I saw a 3-way tie, but that's what it's called. Come Dine With Me. Come to my home. And you, as strangers. Now, as the week goes, you get to learn more and more about each other, but it starts off, you are complete strangers. So I'm watching Come Dine With Me, and I'm enjoying it because the people are not, there is a professional version, but for the most part, these are just regular people who like to cook, who want to entertain, who don't really know how to cook, but they want to cook, like they want to be a part of this. And so I like the ordinariness of it. Like you don't have to have all of these skills. You just have to be one who is willing to participate. So I'm watching Come Dine With Me, and because I am watching it, I'm binge watching it. That means I'm going from episode to episode to episode. There are patterns that I can pick up on that you wouldn't be able to pick up on if you're watching it from week to week. And that's one of the reasons why I like to stream, because I want to pick up on the patterns. And of course, knowing me, I'm picking up on the patterns that have to do with racism, sexism, classism, all of those things. And so no, for those people who wonder, can I ever just watch something for fun? No, I always find something that makes me say, and then I'll chase that thought. I'll walk through that door. So I'm watching Come Dine With Me, and I realized that for people who are vegan, if you are vegan, whoever is the host for that night has to make sure that they prepare more than one option for their starter, for their main, not necessarily for their dessert, because a lot of times they just have a vegan dessert for everybody. But because they know that there's a vegan coming to the dinner party, they want to make sure that they accommodate that person. So even though I eat meat as the host, and even though that's what I do is I cook meat, I've now got to figure out how to create something that a vegan might enjoy. So they're going on to whatever website, they're looking for a recipe, they're going out to buy these ingredients that they have no knowledge of, they have no experience with, but they're trying to come up with something to satisfy this vegan because this person has been invited into your home and you want to accommodate them because they have different dietary needs. Okay. So on the face of that, you're thinking, oh, okay, of course. If you know somebody's coming to your house that doesn't eat meat, you want to give them something that doesn't require meat because that's what you do, right? Like you want to say, I embrace the whole of who you are. Like I want to celebrate you. If this is how you live your life, I want to honor that. I have no problem with that. So that's a great way to respond to vegans, right? At least that's what I think. But what I also noticed is that when the person who is vegan is hosting the dinner party, they make no attempt to serve anything with meat. They make no attempt to go onto the internet and find a recipe that includes some kind of animal product. They make no attempt to familiarize themselves with ingredients that are unfamiliar to them because they want to make sure they accommodate the people that eat meat. They don't do that. They strictly create a vegan menu, and they expect everyone who shows up to understand that because I am vegan, then I don't eat meat. And so nobody's eating meat tonight. And I find that offensive. Again, I don't find it offensive that a person wants to be vegan. I do not find it offensive that a person chooses not to eat animal products. I do not find it offensive that this is an ethical decision that they have made, this is a lifestyle that they have chosen. I do not find that offensive at all. But I do find it offensive that you, as a vegan, you expect everybody else to cater to you, but you don't cater to them. So what is it about being a vegan that makes you say, I'm going to make sure that I establish the rules in this house, and whatever my rules are, everybody has to abide by them. But when I go to your house, I'm going to establish the rules for your house too. Like, that's just not what I expect us to be about when we're trying to be in relationship with each other. So here's Lo. What is Lo saying? Do as I say and not as I do. Vegan. Do as I say and not as I do. I don't know if I understand what you mean. Say more about that. Do as I say and not what I do. Not as I do. Oh, yes. So vegans are like, I want you to honor and respect my lifestyle, but that's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you, honor and respect my lifestyle choices as it relates to my diet, but I'm not going to honor and respect yours. I'm not going to do what I'm asking you to do. Okay, I get it. Yes, that's exactly what's happening. That they do not honor the people who eat meat in the way they expect the people to eat meat to honor them. And so I was thinking about that because it hit me way down deep. So because it hit me way down deep, I knew that it was more than just about food. Like, this is more than just about that. And so I was thinking about that as a faithful person, because what I want to do is to live a life that demonstrates what I believe on a faithful level, what I believe about how we are called to operate on higher vibrations as humans, and how those higher vibrations allow us to embrace the divineness that we all have. And so I was thinking about that, and I was trying to figure out what verse helps me have this conversation. And so I found verses in Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. And it's really, I think, verses 3 and 4 that kind of hit home when we're having this conversation about veganism. But I want to pause right now to pull up the text so that we can look at it together and kind of go from there. Just kind of read these words. I'm going to read them, and you can, if you have your Bible, your book, your reference, your resource, you can follow along, or you can just kind of close your eyes or look off into another space and just allow the words to wash over you, or you can see them on the screen and you can read them with me. Like, however you want to do it. I just want to introduce these words into the conversation that come from Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. And then I'm going to pause for us to Selah. Selah, Selah, which means to pause and calmly think about that. So I usually give us 7 seconds with the Mississippis, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then I'll continue to have the conversation. And so we can talk about this sin of veganism where I expect you to treat me according to who I have decided to be in my life, but I do not believe I have to reciprocate that because I am who I am, and I don't have to be who you are. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. And I just want to see how you are going to respond to these verses. And here they are. Philippians chapter 2. And this is the easy to read version. And to be honest with you, I only picked it because that's the first one that popped up. Like, I didn't take the time to look for any other ones that might say it in a different way or use any different language. I was fine with the easy to read version. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just is this version because it was already up on my screen. Here we go. Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Think about what we have in Christ, the encouragement he has brought us, the comfort of his love, our sharing in his spirit, and the mercy and kindness he has shown us. If you enjoy these blessings, then do what will make my joy complete. Agree with each other and show your love for each other. Be united in your goals and in the way you think. In whatever you do, don't let selfishness or pride be your guide. Be humble and honor others more than yourselves. Don't be interested only in your own life, but care about the lives of others too. I want to read verse 4 again. Don't be interested only in your own life, but care about the lives of others too. Okay, so first let me just say that these words have been put into Paul's mouth. So this is Paul talking about Paul now in the book of Philippians being one who is, I guess, what people would call these days an apostle. Not a disciple, but an apostle. So disciple, we use that word to say this is a person who is a follower. So those people who are, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, are those the disciples? The 12, the people that they call the 12. But I think that we should not focus on the 12, but it would be better for us to think about the upper room in the book of Acts, where there was 120 people who were male and female and gender nonconforming, who were in that room, who were experiencing the presence of God in a new and profound way. Those people who were hearing the good news, hearing the gospel, hearing the message of Christ in their own language, even though someone was speaking it in a different tongue. And so when we talk about the followers, there are these people who had this experience of what it means to be ushered into the very presence of the Most High God that they had never felt before, in a way that shook them to their core and convicted them to believe that this is really something that's real. Like this, like we ain't playing. Like this is no joke. Like I can't even explain to you. I can't even articulate to you what is happening. I know that I heard this this message in my own language. And I know that the person that was talking don't even speak my own language. So I'm telling you not what I heard. I'm not even telling you what I read. I'm telling you what I experienced. And so it's better to think about the disciples in that way, that 120 who, because of that experience, because of that emotion, because of that phenomenon that you cannot change, that you cannot erase from their memory, these people say, yes, I will follow Jesus in this moment, not understanding Jesus to be the Messiah or anything like that, just realizing that Jesus was demonstrating something that they had never seen or heard of before. And so we talk about disciples being those ones that say, okay, now that I have an invitation into this way of being, this new way of living, this new way of thinking, this new philosophy of spirituality, I'm going to say yes to it. So those people you would call a disciple. In the case of Paul and others, but in the case of Paul, because we're talking about the book of Philippians, Paul says, well, not only am I going to be a disciple, I'm going to be a follower of this new way of living into my spirituality, of this new way of living into my faithfulness. I'm also going to create the experience, create the environment, create the atmosphere for other people to also come into the knowledge of what it means to follow in this way. And so I want to make sure that I am fostering relationships with people who will become disciples just like me. So I am an apostle because I'm going to establish church, what we call churches. I'm going to establish these, I'm going to create these contexts for people to have this same kind of experience and to also choose to say yes to the invitation. I can't say church in the way that we think of church, because what Paul was doing, he was being what in the United Methodist Church we call an itinerant preacher. Like I am an itinerant preacher where the conference will send you to whatever church they think is the best place for you to be with your skills and your talents and the needs of the congregation. We're going to marry you all together so that the work of Christ can be done, right? And so I might be in Gulfport this year, I might be in Greenville next year, I might be in Jackson the next year, or I might stay in one place 5 years and then I'm off to the other place for 7 years. So you are itinerant because you are going from place to place to place. And so this is how Paul was. He was going from place to place to place, establishing these contexts. I don't want to call them churches, these contexts in which people can then say yes to this way of living, which they call the way, which meant that they believed that Jesus was absolutely someone who was revolutionary, who was called, who was gifted, who was graced, who was somebody that could not be matched, right? Who was marvelous and matchless and all of those things. And so because he's a creator of these contexts, he would then be called an apostle. So as an apostle, he's now in this city of Philippi, and he's talking to these people, and he's hoping that they will make his joy complete, right? Like I want you to make my heart sing. I want you to set my soul on fire. I want to be able to walk away from having been in relationship with you in this moment, in this space, and know that somebody is going to live a different life. Somebody is going to begin to follow our teaching. Somebody is going to come to know Christ in a way that they did not know before I showed up on the scene. So he's here in Philippi doing this work. And he says, one of the ways that you can make my joy complete is that you can be of the same mind. And many of us, when we think about being of the same mind, we're going to love, and he wants people to love in the same way. We think that means we have to agree on everything. That we think that means that everybody has to go to church every Sunday. You have to give your tithes. You have to sing hymns. You have to pray prayers. You have to, what else do we feel like you have to do? You have to follow the liturgy. And in this case, for many of us, the liturgy includes the announcements. Like we have this very structured way of being in gathered together on Sundays, and that we say that this is what it means to be of the same mind. We all feel the same way about God. We believe in the Trinity. We all believe in the Virgin Mary. We all believe in the Immaculate Conception. We all believe in the resurrection. Like everybody has to say yes to all of these things in order to be of the same mind and to love in the same way. And that is not what the scripture or the text means at all in this. That's not my interpretation, because I don't want to offend anybody. If that's what you think it means, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to offer something else up for consideration. But to be of the same mind is to say that I'm going to love the same way. When we get to verse 4, Paul is saying, if we are going to be of the same mind and we're going to love in the same way, we're going to think the same way, then that means that we are going to demonstrate how Christ showed us love, which means Christ embraced the whole of who we are. Because when you think about Jesus, especially as it relates to the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospels, Jesus was one who was willing to sacrifice his whole existence as being God. I'm going to sacrifice what it means to sit at the right hand of God the Father Almighty by allowing myself to be enfleshed, by allowing myself to be crucified, because I believe that everybody ought to have the opportunity to come boldly to the cross. What is keeping us from coming boldly to the cross? This notion of sin that we made up in the Old Testament is like, no. What I need you to understand is that to love like I love means that all you have to do is hold fast to two philosophies, hold fast to two ways of thinking, hold fast to two ways of being. Believe in God, believe in something bigger than yourself, and love your neighbor like you love yourself. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not even talking about not killing anybody. I'm not even talking about adultery. I'm not even talking about lying anymore, which is the 10 commandments. I'm saying love God and love your neighbor, because if you do those two things, they will satisfy the requirements of the 10 commandments. We don't have to put them on the what are we doing these days? We don't have to post them up in the classroom. We don't have to put them on stones in front of the Capitol like they do in Arkansas. We don't have to do those things, because if I love God, if I believe in something bigger than I am, that's guiding me, that's pushing me, that's nudging me into right relationship with people, and I love people the way that I love myself, I don't want nobody to kill me, so I'm not going to kill anybody. I don't want anybody to dehumanize me, so I'm not going to dehumanize. Like, if I live that way, then we will be all of the same mind if we carry those two thoughts first and foremost. And so Paul is saying we've got to love each other that way. We've got to love each other with that same understanding. Now, how that looks is going to be different depending on who it is that we're loving. And so that's what brings me to the whole vegan. If I'm loving a vegan, if I am of the mindset that I want to make sure that I am embracing the whole of who you are, because I see God in you, I recognize you as a divine reflection, I recognize your divinity, I honor your godness, then if you say you don't eat animal products, then I'm not going to create an environment in which you're asked to eat animal products. Like, I would not do that to you. And I'm okay with that, because that's the way I'm loving you. But then the vegan has to also, Paul says, be of that same mind. If you want to love me and I eat meat, then you ought to be able to say, oh, okay, even though I don't eat meat, I'm still going to create a dish that contains meat because my neighbor eats meat. And so I'm going to love the whole of who you are and create an environment where you can live into what your beliefs are. In the same way, I expect you to create an environment where I can live into what my beliefs are. And then we are of the same mind of loving each other for who we are, rather than for what we agree on. All right, let me get this comment. Hey, Takia. Just, I have this same opinion about denominations. A lot of the practices that separate them, to me, are so worldly and structured that they take away from being of the same mind. Let me read that again. I have this same opinion about denominations. A lot of the practices that separate them to me are so worldly and structured that they take away from being of the same mind. You know, I agree with you. I dated this cop. I probably shouldn't say his name because it turned out that he was married, and I don't want to get into all of that. I don't want nobody to look. But I was dating this law enforcement officer. This is before I was conscious. And he invited me to his church. And when I got to, he didn't tell me anything about the church, but he invited me to the church. I was very holy at the time in a very religious way. I was religiously holy. I wasn't spiritual like I am now, but I was religiously holy. And when we got to the church, because of who I am, the first thing I noticed was that there was no piano. Like, I'm sitting at my piano right now. I grew up in a house where there was a piano. My mama had a piano. I played her piano till I got my own piano. Everywhere I've ever lived, my daddy has brought me piano. There's always been a piano everywhere I live. So the first thing I noticed at the church was that there was no piano. So I was like, okay. I had never been in a church where there was no piano before. And then when it was time for the worship service, there was music, but there was no instrument. So there was music. They had hymn books and they started singing, but there was no piano. And so I don't need a piano to sing, and I know how to harmonize. And most of the time, the people beside you are going to be singing soprano or some octave of the melody. And so I'm like, okay, I know how to harmonize. So I'm going to make a joyful noise. Like, I have no problem with any of that. So I got right into the flow of things and I went on with the worship service. We had a great time, la. But as we were leaving and we were in the car headed back to, I don't know where we went, to his house or my house, I don't remember. But I was like, why you don't have no piano? And he said, because the Bible says that you're supposed to make melody to the Lord in your heart. And so because the Bible says you're supposed to make melody to the Lord in your heart, we don't believe in instruments because you're supposed to just make the melody in your heart. And so I'm like, well, so they refused. I went to his church, but he wouldn't come to my church because my church had a piano, had an organ, and by then I had one that I was going to a church that had drums. So we were showing up, rocking up in that church, singing and praising and hooping and hollering and dancing and shouting and all of that. But listen, he would not, his faith would not allow him to attend my church because we had instruments. So you mean to tell me that we can't both serve the same God because we got a piano? So the piano is keeping us from being in right relationship with each other. You can't be in, like, so I found out later, like, he was trying to convert me. That's why he was inviting me to his church, because he was thinking that I was not in right relationship with God because I wasn't making melody in my heart. Well, first of all, if we making melody in our heart, why is we singing? I was like, shouldn't we just all be sitting here just kind of like not saying nothing, but just like kind of feeling it? Like, why are we even singing if we're supposed to make the melody in our heart? I'll have to find that verse. I don't have my phone right here, but I do have my iPad. Let me see if I can find that verse. Takia, you should know this church. I don't want to say you should know this church, but it's in Jackson. Let me tell you where it is. It's on is that Forest Avenue? If you go down Northside Drive and you're headed towards Chastain, so you're headed towards Chastain, you're headed towards State Street, you're headed that way. I can't remember if that's north, south, east, or west now, but that street is like Forest Avenue. I want to say it's Forest Avenue. And you take a left. Yeah. So when you're going towards Chastain, going towards Boyd Elementary, and then you get to the stoplight where it's a McDonald's on your left. It was a Wendy's catty corner. It used to be a Second Save, or then it turned into the Piggly Wiggly, and you would have passed churches and Popeyes, like all of that's right there at that intersection. You take a left on that street, and you go down a little ways, and it was just a church right there on the left, kind of sitting back in the street. And that was his church. And they did not believe in music, in instruments. So that goes against everything that David worshiped. David had harps, horns, and all sorts of instruments in his worship. And not only did David have all of these harps and these horns and these instruments, David praised so hard to the music that he came out his clothes. He was shouting something. I'm talking about David was like, I'm finna show y'all how to worship. I'm finna show you how to praise the Lord. I'm finna come out my clothes, to the point that his wife, remember, was like, you embarrassed me. And he was like, look, I tell you what, I'm going to praise, even if I have to praise him by myself, I'm going to praise him. So absolutely. So this is what I mean. Like, it's going back to what Takia is saying. Here's what she says, that some of these practices that we have that are creating these denominations don't have anything to really do with who God is for us. It's something we done made up, and it's something that we have made up that divides us and that separates us, that keeps us from living into what Christ has asked us to do. Keep these two things in mind. Love something bigger than you are, and love people like you love yourself. If you love me the way that you love yourself, then you don't want anybody to judge you because you don't believe in instruments. So why are you going to judge me because I do? Like, what are we talking about? And so it's the same thing about the vegans. So you judging me at my house because I'm eating meat, but you don't want anybody to judge you because you don't eat meat. Like, you cannot have it both ways. If we are going to be of the same mind, then we've got to love people for who they are, because God created diversity. Can't nobody convince me that God didn't create diversity, because I don't. Think about your fingerprint. Think about your fingertips. None of us have the same fingerprint. Not even if you are an identical twin, you do not have the same fingerprint. So how does that work? If you say that God did not create diversity, that God did not create difference, that God did not create innovation, like, surely we're not all supposed to think exactly alike. Like, how is that even God? And so for you to think that you can live a certain way, and I'm supposed to honor the way that you live, but I live a different way and you don't have to honor that, then what does that say about our faith? Here's Takia. I went to a church with a middle school friend. You'd probably remember her aunt. Their church was trying to get those who accepted Christ to speak in tongues by saying, "Thank you, Jesus," over and over really fast. I was in shock and had never seen that. Literally coaching. I went to a church with a middle school friend. You'd probably remember her. Their church was trying to get those who accepted Christ to speak in tongues by saying, "Thank you, Jesus," over and over really fast. I was in shock and had never seen that. Literally coaching at the altar. I experienced that at Word of Faith. Word of Faith was on I can't even remember where it was now. I can't remember, but Word of Faith was this new church that came. It was about the word, like you would flip out. The service was like an hour and 30 minutes long, and you was always going from one scripture to the next. They had a little bookstore in the church where you could buy a journal so you can keep notes while the pastor was preaching, like Word of Faith. And I had never experienced that either, but I did feel called to the altar. I felt the Spirit so heavy on me that when they opened the doors they had altar call. That's what they call them. They had altar call. I went down, but I ain't know nothing about speaking in tongues. And they was teaching me at the altar. And you feel, listen to what happened to me. I couldn't do it. I didn't understand what was happening. It was my first experience. I had not grown up in a church like that. I had not grown up around people speaking in tongues. I did not know that life. And so now they're trying to get me to do it on the spot while I'm at the altar. And I couldn't do it because I'm like, it's too much happening right now. I was already high in the spirit. Now you want me to speak in tongues. I don't know how to speak in tongues. You're trying to teach me how to speak in tongues. I'm trying to comprehend what you're saying. It's other people around me falling all out. Like, it's like, it was too much. And so because I didn't do it, they took me to the back. And they took me to the back so that they could have this coaching session because I couldn't get the coaching in at the altar. They took me to the back to teach me. So I ain't gonna lie. Let me just be real. I came up with some. I don't know what I was saying. Whatever I was saying to get them to get me from back there, because now I'm not even feeling the spirit no more. I don't even know what this is. Can I get back to where I'm back to my seat? That's what I want to do. And so what is that, right? And so you're trying to say to me, you're trying to convince me that I'm not really in right relationship with God because I'm not speaking in tongues, but all of y'all are. So you want me to honor your tongues, but you don't want me to honor you don't want to honor my lack of tongues. So Paul is saying that's not what it means to be of the same mind. To be of the same mind doesn't mean that we have to all demonstrate our faith in the same way. Because let me tell you something about my mama. My mama wasn't finna speak in no tongues. She wasn't speaking in no tongues. She wasn't taking off no shoes. She wasn't running around no sanctuary. She wasn't lifting up no hands. She wasn't shouting no hallelujah. That's not who she was. But you could tell when the spirit fell upon her because her leg would get to shaking and it couldn't stop. She couldn't stop until the spirit moved through her body. That was her demonstration of God's presence on her. It wasn't the way that because look, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to sing, I'm going to say, hallelujah, that's me. But that was not her. And so Paul is saying, you what you said, you like, I came up with something, girl, let me tell you, I felt like I had to. Has anybody else felt like you had? How many of y'all been on them morning benches? What they call it, in the summertime, revival. You go to revival and you got everybody sitting on their first bench, and you got to sit on that first bench until you get saved, and you got to come every night, and they waiting on you to get saved. You get down to Thursday and Friday, and you ain't been saved. You better do something. You better say something. You better break out in something, or else church gonna last all night long because we tarrying until he come. Like all of these things, like you said, these structures that we have created that really end up dividing us because somewhere along the way we've been indoctrinated to believe that my way of being is the right way. But when I think about veganism, when we talk about your way of being, this is a choice that you made. Anybody who is vegan, you made a choice to be vegan. You decided for whatever reason, whatever happened to your life, whatever journey you went on, whatever brought you to this moment, you said, I no longer want to eat any food that has been prepared using animal products. That's a choice you made. That ain't got nothing to do with the rest of us. And nobody said you can't. I'm not saying you can't make the choice, but you can't put your choice on my life. You can't now declare that whenever you show up, I got to prepare food differently just because you showed up. If you a vegan, go to a vegan restaurant. If you a vegan, go to your vegan friend's house to eat. Like, how you gonna come to my house where we eat meat and say, oh my God, I can't believe you eat meat. Girl, bye. So Takia says overstimulating and you just want it to be over. Yes. You gonna come and I think that is what's happening to us in church, that we really are not we're really not living into what we believe in church. We're just going through the motions because we know that's what's expected of us. I got to sing these hymns. Let me tell you how I know. Many of us, when it comes to singing these hymns, let's say we're gonna sing Amazing Grace. If we're gonna sing Amazing Grace, we probably know the first and the fourth verse. We probably know Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. And we probably know when we've been there 10,000 years. Okay. Anything in the middle, what is we doing? That's what we doing. We don't even know the words. So if we don't know the words, how are we internalizing their meaning? How are we really worshiping how are we really worshiping the understanding of those words? How are we really embracing and internalizing and allowing ourselves to be caught up in the words when we don't even know them? But we up in there saying, we singing something, we humming, we mumbling, we doing something until we get to the chorus. And so we are forcing people into this way of being that's not authentic, that's not genuine, that doesn't have anything to do with God. Because I don't believe God cares whether we sing damn verse. Because he can't. God can't. God ain't he. God can't. You know why? Because there's also a verse that says if you don't praise him, the rocks will cry out. So that means that God don't need me. Because God is so powerful that God can make a rock cry out if you believe the verse. So I ain't got to sing nothing. But if you sitting in church and you ain't singing nothing, people looking like, and I've been one of those, because as a musician, sometimes I be tripping. I've had to catch myself because I'm playing the piano and I'm playing the hymn and I can't hear nobody singing but me. And I'm like, is anybody singing? But how am I going to, they ain't got to sing? I want them to sing because I don't want to be the only one singing. I don't want to be out. Look, I'm trying to sing. I'm trying to play. I'm trying to keep the rhythm. I'm trying to keep the praise team going. I'm trying to engage. Like, I got a lot going on. Y'all need to help me. Does it have anything to do with God, or does it have something to do with my ego as the musician? Right? And so that's what I wanted to talk about, this sin. We're missing the mark when we expect people to embrace what we believe without in turn embracing what they believe with no judgment. And if you want me to accommodate your convictions, then it's only fair for you to accommodate mine. So if you can't accommodate my convictions as a person who believes in eating shellfish or eating meat or pork or beef, then why is it that you demand that I accommodate yours? And let me tell you what I did. I looked up the vegan restaurants in Arkansas. I looked them up. I don't know if I looked up all of them because, hey, I ain't gonna lie, I'm using a Google search. So whatever popped up on the Google search, however many it was, 10 or 12 that showed up, that's what I did. So I did not try to do an extensive search. I just wanted to get the gist of what I was trying to say. Not one vegan restaurant that I went on the website and I looked at their menu, not one vegan restaurant offered a meat option. Not one. On the flip side, I also looked up the restaurants that offer meat choices, right? All of them that I remember, I'm just looking at this list, however long, the list was about this long. I'm only talking about this list. Every one of them offered a vegetarian and a vegan option. So I'm like, so the meat eaters got to make sure they offer veggies and non-animal products, but the vegans ain't got to offer no meat. Why is that? How is that even fair? Why the vegans ain't got to do what the other people got to do? So why is it that the Christians feel like we don't have to accommodate the Jews. We don't have to accommodate the people who are Muslim. We don't have to accommodate those who are Jehovah's Witness. We don't have to accommodate the Buddhists, but we expect this to be a Christian nation. We want it. Watch now, in whatever state you are in, I want you to tell me, maybe it started now, but definitely closer to Christian. Want your capital, the capital in the city, have decorations, have Christmas decorations at the Capitol. Why do you have Christmas decorations at the Capitol? Why you got Christmas decorations? You done spent money out of our budget. Some cities, you spend money out of the budget to put a Christmas tree in the square. You put a Christmas tree in the main part on Main Street. You do all of this because you want to remind everybody, hey, we Christian. Okay. Ain't nobody trying to stop you from being Christian. And we don't mind accommodating your Christianity. But what about our beliefs? What about our faith? So that's what I mean by this sin of veganism. I'm just using veganism as a metaphor for us thinking that we have to, that people are supposed to cater to us, but we don't have to cater to them. But yet we say that we are living faithfully. Faithfulness requires us to have open hearts for all people of all beliefs, of all convictions, because that is what it means to have the same mind. That is what it means to love in the same way. And that is what Paul is calling us to do. And that is what I'm asking us to be open enough to do. Get to know your neighbor, first of all, so you'll know what their beliefs are, and then embrace them in the same way that you want them to embrace you. Not only is that God's way, that's just right. That's just fair. That's just. Thank y'all so much for joining me for the good fight. I love it. Every Tuesday, I'll be right back on next Tuesday. Wait a minute. Here's some more. It's a said, and if you're like me, if I hear and see it 1 or 2 times, then I got it. I was singing songs just making it sound good in the choir. I didn't really internalize those words until I went through some stuff. Oh yeah, so I didn't even see this comment until just now. Yes, you gonna say something. And let me tell you what I learned when I was, because I was in the choir in college, and to be in the choir in college, that's a part-time job. We were touring all over the place. We were practicing all day. We had to have toddies and tied necks up, and we learned that when you don't know the words, if you go blank in that moment, you better say watermelon, because if you sing watermelon, if you just say watermelon to whatever the tune is, watermelon, 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 people think that you're singing the words, but you was up there saying watermelon. We learned that professionally in college. So, I done saw plenty of watermelon, so it'll look like I'm singing what y'all singing. And really I'm not. So I appreciate you, Takia. I appreciate everybody being in this space. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.